How do you make up for lost time? That was the question going into week 5 of our bike tour, which sounds like a much grander life question, but it's not. It's quite literally just questioning our bike trip planning, because if the plan pre-tour was to do all of this, but now we'd lost time to rest days and a slow pace, how the hell do we play catch up?
First day of week 5, we woke up at the observation tower, which was quite a nice observation tower, probably the best one we've been to.
To be honest, at this point we had a pretty good rhythm going with our travels. Our daily rides felt less tiring, the hills were becoming less challenging, and our challenge of not paying for accommodation was becoming easier. To put it into simple terms, life on the bike had become a new normal.
We're kind of ironing out the kinks. It's a great feeling to improve and kind of learn, new strategies and tactics.
We're turning right. Left.
But going into this week, we knew we had to ramp things up another level. Recently, we had been maybe a bit too casual with our pace, and if we still wanted to see all the cities and places from our plan, such as the Croatian coast and the Italian mountains, we'd have to ride further and faster daily than what we'd been doing. The rain to kick off the first day of the week didn't help this.
And it kind of halted us because I don't think we like riding in the rain too much, but we found a tree cover, I guess.
But hey, if there's one thing that we're good at, it's finding ways to pass time.
Built a little rock tower, or Vinny did, and
we made fun of the time by chucking rocks at other rocks. Very us fashion, I think.
Along, of course, with playing some other stupid games.
Or can you rub your arm? Just rub your hand like this. Three, two, 1, 2, go. More. Really rub it in. This part here, this one's good. The back of the Budejovice turn is wide, and Algred gets the deuce.
Listening to some tennis action also kept us entertained.
It would have been a great match to watch, but we could only listen to through a streamer on YouTube again. I think we talked about him in the other week.
Down the line to the front of Alcaraz, Budejovice gets the first point, love 15.
But as the weather cleared, we hit the road again, although we had to pull over to listen to hear Djokovic get the win.
The GOAT!
But pulling over saw us randomly meet an older Australian cycling couple. Now, I didn't get it on camera, but they had so much great wisdom, most notably the advice of aiming to get 50 kilometres done before breakfast.
They were a bit older, they were glamping, but they seemed pretty insightful what they did. They seemed a lot fitter than us as well, which is pretty insane. I think one of the things that keeps going through my mind is how the bloke did a tour of New Zealand, and it wasn't meant to be a race, but they did 3,000 Ks in like 15 days. Something just silly, but it's always good to see how other people do their bike tours.
Mountains.
Our previous night at an observation tower inspired us to look again for another one to sleep at. Except this time, it was a bit more of a disappointing one. And goddamn, people were staying around late, so we were kind of just awkwardly hovering around for a while, waiting for people to clear out so we could set up our little spot to sleep at.
So we had to kind of wait around and wait for them to leave until we started setting up, so we're just sitting there awkwardly.
We were starting to get a bit worried that this one guy in particular would never leave. It was getting legit nighttime and he was still hanging about. But eventually, on the stroke of midnight, he finally did leave. There was only enough room for 2 of us in the hut at the bottom, so Kelly and me took that, while Riley slept a bit further away. 2 thumbs up from the hobo shelter, let's go. Can't ask for more than that.
There's glass everywhere, which we had to clean up, but it was an alright sleep in the end.
All in all, it wasn't perfect, but it would have to do. The good news was waking up on day 2, we had a warm showers host to look forward to that night. Wakey, Riley. This was especially exciting as it was in the town of Cesky Budejovice, which we'd read great things about, so the sooner we could get there, the better. So, we hit the road.
What the fuck just happened?
But that lasted all of about 2 seconds.
I did crash, unfortunately. I slipped in some mud after riding a total of 10 metres out of our campsite.
How did it look?
It was like this, and like that, and like that.
Oh, okay. Thank you for the reenactment.
A few scratches, a bit of blood, but I don't think the arm has been an issue because he hasn't really brought it up, toughing it out.
Banged my elbow pretty bad, but we're okay.
I think that's his first crash of the trip. So it's nice to see other people also crash and not just me.
Is it bad that as soon as I heard a crash in the background, I'm like, damn it, Kelly? But all three of us bravely persevered on. The bush and the hills were the highlights of the day's ride. Although, if I'm honest, I was starting to get pretty fed up with the hilly terrain of Czechia. Whew.
Come on, you bastard. Woo!
It was starting to get pretty clear that we weren't on the flat roads of the Netherlands or Germany anymore.
But I'm just like nervous about whenever I see like mud or like a little bit of dirt on the track that I'm just gonna like skid out again.
Now, I wish there was more exciting things to share about the next part of the ride to Cesky Budejovice, but it was pretty straightforward riding, outside of a blocked off road which did make us get a little bit creative. Down the side, I guess. But although we weren't riding on specific bike paths and were mainly just on the road, we didn't have to exert too much energy before arriving in the stunning Cesky Budejovice and ride to meet our warm showers host. But the standard procedure happened. Riley had to get more fixes done with his tyre this time, so Kelly and me rode ahead while he found a bike store. But this is where one of the week's best moments happened. Right as we were about to meet Václav for the first time, sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right, Riley sent me a message saying that the bike store workers weren't able to fix his bike. So he simply asked if our warm showers host happened to be a Chad who could fix his bike problems.
Hey, Václav. Vincent.
Hey, Václav.
Nice to meet you.
And then, right at that moment, out stepped Václav. And I think calling him a Chad would be an understatement. This guy looked like the frickin' Czech James Bond. So, sure enough, being the legend that he is, he said, yep, bring the bike over and I'll chuck on some new tubeless tyres and any other fixes that you need.
Bit of a fucking hunk of spunk Václav was. I miss him already.
An absolute goat. Shout out to Václav. He instantly fixed Riley's bike, which was really great. Also, probably our first shower in a week, which felt amazing.
And his kindness didn't end there. He gave us an awesome evening tour of the beautiful Cesky Budejovice, including dinner at his 700-year-old pub.
Okay, Nastaví.
A really nice place in Cesky, I'm going to absolutely butcher this, but Cesky Budejovice. And then we went out for dinner and we had some authentic meals, which was really good.
The original wood from, 700 years ago was still holding the whole place together, which was absolutely mind-blowing just to think about.
And that was a really beautiful town, and he gave us some great advice.
Genuinely, the stuff that he told us that he had done was just so impressive. And it kind of he's one of those guys where you listen to his stories and just makes you want to keep doing more stuff.
A game of cards before sleep was pretty much the perfect way to end the evening.
Wrong way around.
So, as is the theme this week, we had the ambitious plan of making it to Austria by the end of the day. But we had no idea what route to take. So, Václav was our hero yet again, and took time out of his morning to plan us a route, which notably would take us through the town of Cesky Krumlov. But we'd need to ride at a good pace if we wanted to visit both that town as well as make it to Austria by the end of the day.
We went off, we said our goodbyes, had a little bit of a hill to start, and then we had a bit of a death hill as well.
Leading into Cesky Krumlov would be a massive downhill. So steep, in fact, that Václav told us that it could be nicknamed Death Hill due to the amount of severe accidents cyclists had had on it. And yeah, it was pretty steep, but we're pretty cautious riders, so avoided any major accidents. Although Kelly with his GoPro did make a pretty good observation about other pedestrians.
Fuck running up here. Fuck running up there. I don't know what that guy was doing.
But after surviving Death Hill, we had made it to our day's first destination. And what a reward it was. Cesky Krumlov is a stunning town that literally looks like something out of an old Disney movie.
Well, then we hit the town Cesky Krumlov, if that's pronounced right, and it is just absolutely beautiful. As I said before, it's just a UNESCO heritage listing. Every single building is just absolutely stunning. It has this awesome lake that runs through, and then these buildings that are just built into the cliffside and just show so much history. It was very touristy as well, but for good reason.
The morning coffee was enjoyed right along the river, but once again, we had to split up. Riley really needed to get his gearing fixed, as although he had bought the part for it in Germany, time was running out to get it installed before the Dolomites. So he went chasing around for a bike store, while Kelly and me did plenty more tourism.
I get into this bike shop. This old guy's in there, doesn't speak English really well or at all. So I'm kind of just gesturing that I want him to change my shifter over. And he ended up doing it. It took him, I don't know, he had to fix a couple other bikes first, but it took him a couple hours. But then somehow he fucked up the front derailleur. I took the bike back in because I was like, this is still broken. And then he kind of I'm convinced he didn't know what he was doing that well, because he just unscrewed and screwed in the front derailleur for I'm gonna say 45 minutes. I just sat there watching him and he would just sigh and curse in Czech.
We kind of thought with what Riley's telling us that his bike was fucked and he was just sending us messages that just abandon him and leave him there. He's not going to be able to fix it. And it was just absolutely, I can't imagine how stressful it was for Riley, but me and Vinny kind of just strolled around through the town and had a good day. Just soaking everything up, walking around a little bit, riding a little bit, having a nice lunch.
I had no clue what was going on. I didn't know whether should I leave. I couldn't ask him, do you want me to stay? How long is it going to... He didn't know how long it was going to take. So I just kind of stood there awkwardly behind him. And then eventually, after 45 minutes of fiddling around, he says he got it, and I ended up paying him even more money for that fix, even though it wasn't broken to start with. I don't know.
To be honest, I barely noticed how long Riley was gone. I was too busy soaking in the town's atmosphere, along with maybe watching a little bit of basketball.
Oh, I got it! Oh.
But obviously the whole thing took longer than expected, so we knew we'd need to ride with a bit of pace if we still wanted to make it to Austria by the end of the day. But those plans were quickly halted when we saw the opposite of flat roads coming up.
So far we have done a bit of climbing, we've done
a tiny little bit of climbing.
But we've got all of this
Oh my god.
to go.
I'm sure we'll be fine.
This is some serious bullshit. Every time you make it up one of these hills, get a little bit of flat, enjoy a 10-second burst of down, there's another 30-meter fucking climb to go up. Oh, I can't wait for Italy. Here the Dolomites are very flat. I can't see. Oh, sick. On we go.
But it didn't take long for an actual issue to turn up, and it was a classic enemy of the tour, a river crossing. The nearest bridge was a 15-kilometer detour, which wasn't ideal with our hopes of still making it to Austria before sunset. The water was flowing and knee-deep, but it did seem walkable. But I have all my camera gear and footage of the trip on me, and even just the thought of dropping that in the water had me on edge. But when time is pressing, sometimes you just have to forge on.
Yeah, I think we're at the top.
Yay, love being at the top. Could do with some top, hey? Dap me up, brother.
But it didn't matter how many shortcuts we took. By this point, we'd surrendered to the idea of making it to Austria by sunset. So instead, we enjoyed dinner and a swim right on the edge of Czechia, which is when I began to notice my phone was giving up on working with some sort of damage.
Phone has fully carked it.
So it probably wasn't a good time for Kelly and Riley to ride off ahead of me, because I had no way of contacting them. But eventually I did catch up and find them, and fixing my phone quickly became a later issue. The pressing one at the time was finding somewhere to sleep. The only place where there was forest was unfortunately at the top of a very, very steep hill. I'm pretty sure it was the steepest one we'd climbed so far, which was less than ideal to be doing at around 10 p.m.
Oh my god, this is bullshit. Phone won't show it, but this is straight up vertical. Light work.
The biggest one for last.
Yeah.
Once at the top, we saw a patch of grass that maybe could be good enough for sleeping, but also it might have been private land, we weren't too sure. So then, on Google Maps, we saw there was supposedly some sort of church at the very top of the hill we were on.
Yep, church.
Okay.
Cool.
But, as is the case with Google Maps, it didn't have any clear directions for how to get us there.
Lost again.
So, we were kind of just aimlessly following whatever path we could find towards the top.
So we're currently hiking at the sun is well and truly down, and we're pushing our bikes up a mountain. Supposedly there is a church at the top of this mountain, and we thought it'd be a really cool idea to camp at a church at the top. Holy shit, it was a good idea. We discovered it's a good idea.
Hallelujah.
Oh my god.
And it wouldn't be exaggerating to say that this was the best camping spot we'd found on the trip so far.
It was just like a perfect clearing spot for us to camp. So that one's been my favourite spot so far.
I don't know, just the view, the church itself, the fact that there was no one else around, it was stress-free, it was flat, barely any bugs.
But it's hard to see any of that at night. So let's skip over a night of sleeping under the stars and see what it looked like the next morning. Crashing the drone probably wasn't the best way to start the day, but having a breakfast with a view definitely was. We quickly said goodbye to our wonderful sleep spot, along with a goodbye to Czechia, because before we knew it, we were into our 6th country of the tour.
This is Austria.
Oh really?
That was the border just there.
It's lovely.
What did you say? Oh yeah, German writing.
Austria was instantly propelled above Belgium in the country rankings. Not that we've updated them that well, but in my own head, it just became more green, sky more blue, hills more like pretty somehow. I don't know how they did it. We only went a few hundred meters over the border and it became more green for me.
It genuinely felt like we were in some sort of movie.
Austria.
Specifically, there was one movie that it really reminded us of.
Action.
But I can't be fuck editing that right now, so you'll have to wait for next week's episode for that masterpiece. But our first indication of Austrian culture wasn't the hills, but rather the sudden price rise. The first cafe we went into was all sorts of fancy, and it cost an arm and a leg for the iced coffee.
Realizing that Austria is expensive also.
But the second indication we were in Austria was in fact the hills, in all their rolling green glory. All the difficult hills that we'd been climbing that day and the previous days finally had a payoff. This was because entering into the city of Linz from our starting point was essentially all downhill. It's difficult to find the right words for describing the beauty of this ride, but it really did feel like the rule of hard work resulting in reward had truth to it here. Just the fact that we were rolling with such speed and pace through these gorgeous green hills was like, I don't know, it's genuinely hard to describe.
Little memories munching on my little feet, working the machine. Will it spin? Will it soar? My little dream, working the machine.
Probably our best or most fun ride of the whole trip so far with the descent down into Linz. I think I hit my max speed there too. Yeah, it was hard. I think the GoPro didn't capture all of it. It was an awesome ride just to descend. We lost a lot of elevation, maybe like 700 meters or so, but it was really pretty.
Hit! Oh, this is not good for my tires.
But before we knew it, we were in Linz. So that meant I could finally fix my phone. But the fix was going to take a while, so we figured we'd indulge in some traditional Austrian dishes. Thai food.
Linz was one of the places that I remember when we were planning this trip, I just randomly clicked on it on Google Maps because I saw it was along the Danube, and we looked at the Google Maps pictures and we were like, well, we've got to go there now. And it was cool to have that weird idea become like an actual thing, like we're here now. Like you got to take a step back sometimes in those moments and see like just a small idea clicking on stupid things on Google Maps, and now you're in this spot because of that. It's kind of like a thing that you can take for granted. Looking at where this idea came from, I think, is a really cool perspective to have.
Cool. Phone is fixed. On to task 2 in Linz. Find a sleep spot. As there was a bit of a storm coming with both rain and wind, we preferably wanted to find somewhere with cover, but where the fuck would we find that?
Why does it always have to look like this? Rain not avoided.
So after a bit of riding following the Danube, we saw there was a little bit of potential room on the riverbank, but we were still pretty much in the city, so we weren't really sure how hard it would be to get away with it. Fortunately, there were some local fishermen, so we could just ask them.
When we asked some locals if it's okay to sleep, and they said it's not legal, but they do it all the time, you just got to stay hidden.
So that's what we did. Found a nice spot next to the water that seemed pretty well hidden away from any authorities that may pass by on the main road next to us.
Yeah, it was generally right next to the cycle path. It was very public, but we were just hidden. So it's just a perfect spot for us.
So all in all, it was a pretty phenomenal sleep spot, with water to swim in and then just watching these amazing big boats drift by throughout the whole night. But most importantly, we'd get an undisturbed sleep, which was important because we had the tour's biggest day of riding waiting for us the very next morning. Attempting our first 200 kilometer day today. Let's go.
And then we wake up for our biggest day yet. We had planned, we were going to cycle from Linz to Vienna, or Wien. We got up early, got it going slightly behind schedule, but early for us. I think we left at about 7:15, 7:30.
On the positive side, the actual ride would be pretty flat. We'd just be following the Danube all the way from Linz to Vienna. And even better, a man by the name of Stefan on Warm Showers had offered to host us that night, giving us even more motivation to get the 200 kilometers done. On the negative side, I ruined that flat riding idea instantly.
This cemetery was a good idea.
As we started the day without any water, I simply checked Google Maps for the nearest cemetery to get a refill. I probably should have checked the elevation, as this cemetery apparently needed the best view in all of Austria.
Guess we're lucky we found one on the way, right?
Yeah, thanks for that.
We were now starting the day with a 400 metre climb to get the legs nice and woken up. The other two boys weren't too happy with me with that, but hey, needed our water. On we went. Getting 50 kilometres done before breakfast was the plan, as another bike tourer a week earlier had told us beforehand that that's the best way to start the day. But I can personally say that this is a terrible way to start the day. By the time we clocked 50 kilometres without any food or coffee, my body was feeling like complete shit.
We wanted to do 50 Ks before breakfast or so, and we basically hit that. Before Vincent started doing his food crushing, I don't know how the amount of food he consumes, but it makes sense. Says he was just like gonna faint apparently.
I wouldn't say it was ambitious because it was all downhill, but to me it was just very exciting. I've never really done anything physically this large before, and I was trying to scale it in my head, and I know in an Ironman a cycle is 180 kilometers, so the thing that motivated me was knowing that this is probably like a marathon equivalent of a bicycle ride, but obviously it was all downhill and very easy, but I don't know, it's still kind of a cool accomplishment to make.
For proper cyclists, riding over 200 kilometres in a day probably doesn't sound too hard. But I can say on a personal level, I was pretty wary going into it. We'd never ridden anywhere near that distance, and with all the touring gear I was carrying, I was expecting a pretty tough day on the road.
And I had my set markers that I was like, in my head, I wanted to hit to make me feel like we were going to get there in time.
Got to catch up to the boys. I went the wrong way. Cash money, let's go.
The next 50 or so kilometres were pretty cruisy. A flat tyre here and there didn't deter us, and the views of course were really stunning. What did deter us, however, was our path being completely blocked off due to some sort of rockfall mudslide sort of thing.
Und die kommt jede Stunde, jede 30 Minuten oder?
I had a chat with the guy on the job and got a pretty simple explanation. Either detour 30 kilometres inland to continue, or go back 500 metres, take a free boat ride that was on offer, and skip the broken road.
400 metres that way, there's a boat, it's free, it'll take us down.
The choice was pretty obvious, but apparently every other cyclist in Austria had the same idea. As the boat only took about 6 passengers at a time, we got to enjoy a nice Glizzy and a Coca-Cola during our wait. But enough of that, it's boat time.
And we ended up waiting there for about an hour trying to get this boat, which in the end was pretty cool. It was really, really small, but fit about 6 or 7 people with our bikes on. It's kind of cool just taking different types of transport. I mean, we've taken a ferry and we've taken a bus, we've taken a train, we've taken a bike obviously, but I don't know, getting in a dinghy and having this dude just fang it down the river, which was pretty cool.
And because the boat ride was such hard work, why not enjoy an ice cream afterwards? After all the stopping though, we are in the shit situation now of having a long way to still go to get to Vienna by the end of the day. As long as I don't crash though, things should be fine.
That's so slippery. Ow.
Ow. Okay, I think we're good. For the next hour or so, we had a pretty good little pace going, and some local guy saw that and he wanted to join in, so it was kind of cool. For the next hour or so, we just had some fourth guy sitting in our streamline with us. Entering kilometre 180 or so, it was pretty obvious that the breakfast, the hot dog, and some energy gels still weren't enough calories to keep us going, so we did have to make sure to have a quick pit stop at the grocery store. At this point, looking and feeling like shit. Bang. Bang.
Whilst it was like a challenge to get that 215 Ks done, I think we ended up doing. And in the end, it wasn't too difficult. I think the most difficult part is just, you know, doing the cycling action for, 9-10 hours straight. It's obviously monotonous, but I guess that's the nature of it. And physically it wasn't too bad because it was just along the river. Getting comfortable with being in that mindset, you just got to slip into a kind of gear that allows you to switch your brain off a little, I think. And maybe that's a healthy thing to do.
About to hit 200k.
8, 9, 200, 300k! Woo!
I think we just got into the outer edge of Vienna too.
Not sure why Riley thought that there was a second Vienna, but apparently the sky wanted to celebrate with us because it turned this weird purple sort of colour. There was also these two kids doing wheelies for the camera. Thank you boys, that was quite impressive. But day was quickly turning into night, so we had to start racing through the city streets. And I have to say, Vienna is an absolutely stunning city at night. Just the way it was getting lit up by the streetlights and buildings.
Riding at night is a very fun experience when everything's well lit, especially in a main city where they have these awesome bike paths and you go through all these really cool town centres and artwork and graffiti and bridges. You kind of get a different perspective on all these spots that you go to at night.
So, as we were getting close to midnight, we now had to find Stefan and his apartment in the city of Vienna. I felt pretty bad because we'd already turned up much later than anticipated and now we were lost in the big city. But, in spite of our best efforts to fuck it up, we found Stefan's place. And he took us upstairs to his gorgeous apartment right in the heart of Vienna. We felt so blessed once again to be hosted in a major city through the generosity of others. Before we could even ask, he asked if we wanted to stay for 2 nights so we could really indulge in the city of Vienna.
Look at this. Living in the luxury hotel.
So despite the theme this week being of getting a wriggle on, it was pretty hard to say no to such a generous offer. And seeing we had such a big day behind us, he recommended a neighbouring burger shop. And as we hit the stroke of midnight, and with 215 kilometres behind us, a burger was just what we needed. Purely in terms of distance, we basically did Melbourne to Geelong, back to Melbourne, and then back to Geelong again.
I was thinking about doing a ride around the entire bay in one day.
If I was that. The days off the tour where we walk around just doing tourism always feel a bit weird because in the back of my head I'm always thinking, oh shit, we should be doing more progress right now. But on the other hand, Vienna is nice. Like, really nice. Part of me wanted to hate it before arriving because, as a Melbourne local, Vienna was the city that ended Melbourne's 7-year streak as the world's most livable city. And goddamn, we've never been number 1 since. But now, I can see why. It wasn't just the architecture or the public transport. It was a truly vibrant and artistic city that just oozed character. And on the smaller side of things, it was the perfect place for Riley and me to compete for the longest track stand.
Oh, photo finish.
You can judge for yourself who won there. The cafes and the people in them really did feel unique to the city. But speaking of cafes, the morning got underway with one of my favourite moments. So for context, the movie Before Sunrise was a big motivator for us visiting Vienna. But the day before arriving, Riley and me had a nice big argument just using our memory over where this scene took place. I was convinced it was a pub, he said it was a train station or something whack like that. So I secretly googled it that morning and without telling him, took him to this diner for breakfast.
Have a look in that direction. What does that look like?
A diner. Come with that train station.
few more before sunrise locations got ticked off, right before Stefan messaged us that he was finished with work and could give us a proper tour of the city. And what a treat that was. Topped off with taking us for a swim in the famous Danube. It was pretty cool that this river we'd been following for so long now provided us with a spot for just, leisure and swimming.
It's made me really jealous of the people that live there because Vienna is absolutely beautiful. Probably my favourite city I visited, but just the fact that you could go down to the Danube after work and just swim on a Friday afternoon and have some beers with some friends and just have a good time, which I obviously can do back at home with the beach, but I don't know, it's just a little bit different.
But Stefan was better than just a tour guide. He had so much great advice and wisdom for young travellers like ourselves that, well, I don't know, I could just listen to him all day. Some of the insane stories he had from touring all over the world just inspired me like nothing else to just stay on my bike and go touring forever. But his biggest influence would come later when he listened to us explaining how we were in a bit of a rush to see both the coast and the mountains.
We kind of discussed it and he was telling us how beautiful the bike path through Austria and through the Dolomites that he had was, and convinced us to go down there. And we were like, well, I know Croatia would be absolutely stunning to visit, but we do have beaches at home.
As this orange glow lit up the sky during our traditional Viennese dinner, Stefan made a very compelling case. If we kept rushing to try and make up for lost time on the bike, then we wouldn't be able to truly enjoy either of the coast or the mountains. So we suddenly had an ultimatum. Would we rather see the coast or the mountains? If you don't know much about Australia, we have a lot of beaches and a lot of not mountains. So the bike tour would be changing. The 5,000 kilometre plan was changing to 4.5. And as of tomorrow, we were heading to the mountains. We didn't get the goodbye to Stefan on camera. Oh, actually, we'll do a POV goodbye. This camera's Stefan.
Alright. Goodbye, Stefan.
It was time to say goodbye to Vienna. Thank you again, Stefan, for the best time. But on our way out, we stopped by at the famous Black Camel Cafe. Of course, every other person there was dressed like a millionaire, and we looked like 3 homeless morons. But fuck it. Deep down, we knew we had the most exciting day ahead out of everyone there. So, it didn't take long for Vienna's buzzing city to turn into countryside, and that countryside that day was seriously hot. I have such distinct memories of riding through sunflower fields, and all of them were just dried out to a crisp. So crashing my drone again sucked. But our lunch didn't, as we doubled down on Austrian food at a local pub.
It was a pretty slow day, pretty hot. We didn't really make too much ground because we were kind of fucking around a bit, going into stores, buying shit. Then we had probably our second best Apfelschorle of the trip at lunchtime. So shout out to everyone that makes good Apfelschorle because it is just such a good drink, and I think I'm addicted at the moment.
But it was a lovely countryside to ride through, to be honest. Like, it was the first time I've seen like grapevines and those sort of things. It's been a lot of fun. I think Austria is very quickly becoming probably one of my favourite countries that we've been to. It's just too naturally beautiful to ignore. For me, France and Austria are kind of tough to call which one I enjoyed more so far, but we've got a lot more of Austria to see, so we'll see how that goes.
Just wanna see the way the skin fits round his bones in the garden, heading all out.
But right as we were getting a good pace going, I got a flat. But not just any flat. You see, I wasn't aware that you have to restock sealant in tubeless tyres.
Vinny started having his problems with his bike with a flat tyre. It ended up being his tubeless tyre, and then he had to put in a tube in, so now both of his tyres have tubes.
So, as the sun burnt through its final hours of the day, I was changing from tubeless to tubed for the second time this trip. Meanwhile, Riley was being a fat fuck with melted cookies.
You disgusting, disgusting animal.
I've never once called you disgusting when you dipped your fingers into the fucking Choco Nussi.
I don't care, look at this.
Not once have I judged for the Choco Nussi. Not once.
That is horrific.
I'm doing this out of necessity because I don't want to put this back in my bag.
It's 50 degrees.
Someone help me. I can't do this alone.
To be honest, there was a real sort of purgatory vibe going on at this moment. But eventually, we got ourselves moving again. As day turned into night, we were in a small country town with nowhere to sleep. A small trip to the cemetery to get some water gave us time to scout on Google Maps.
It's like that one scene from Washed Away.
What? The worst reference ever.
Scouting Google Maps indicated a small river bankment was our best bet. But fuck me dead, as soon as we arrived, I got yet another flat. Was I frustrated? Yeah, but considering it was almost midnight, I just wanted to sleep and deal with it the next day. But problem was we couldn't just sleep straight away because the start of the river wasn't exactly hidden. So we had to dig further. Midnight bush exploring was kind of the norm at this point, but we really weren't finding much. Until, I guess, we did.
We're not gonna find. What are you waiting to find? Alright, I'm gonna go back because I'm pretty happy with that spot. What? Okay, fuck me dead, that's pretty good.
It's like an island.
It was this half rock, half sand little island sort of setup that was honestly pretty nice, along with the fact that a dip in the cold water was one of the better ways to end the day, and with that, the week.
And we're camping next to this little, very shallow, but lovely water. The way this is lit, I've never seen Lake Mungo, but it feels like...
Yeah, I don't know. I think week 5 was one of the best weeks. I'm probably going to say that every week. I'm recording this probably halfway through the next week and I already know what's happening, but I don't know, no teasers, but it's a pretty good week. Austria is very beautiful.
Okay, so to answer the week's question, how do you make up for lost time on a bike tour? The answer is, you don't have to. If the only people holding us accountable for the route we take is ourselves, then it'd be stupid if we got upset on changing plans. Because, in the end, why not just enjoy the ride instead?